Welcome to Live with Vimalasara. Thank you for joining me for this conversation and deep look at approaching our relationship to food with awareness and compassion. I'd like to ask all of you a question. What do you hope to learn from today's session? And before I read some of your answers, let's begin with a brief grounding reflection to settle into this experience collectively. Do what you need to do to relax and be present with me for the next few minutes. If you need to turn something off on the cooker, then do it. If you need to attend to something in your household, then please do it. If you need to stretch, lay down, sit, then please do. This is your time for you. So we'll begin our brief reflection. Piper. P stands for posture. Become aware of your physical body. And we become aware of our physical body by just simply noticing what the body is touching. I stands for inwards. So it's an invitation to go inwards, become introspective, get curious. P stands for purpose. Become aware of your purpose for our time together. Do you really want to be here? Ask yourself that question. E stands for emotions. Become aware of your emotional weather, aware of your internal barometer. What are you feeling right now? Sadness, excitement, joy, frustration? Just notice whatever emotion is arising for you. And R stands for resolve. Make a tiny resolve, something simple like being with me for the next 30 minutes or staying focused for the next 30 minutes. Just a tiny resolve. I'd love to hear what you all have shared that you would like to learn today. Somebody has written, I want to learn about a better self-control with emotional eating. I'm a stress eater. My stomach doesn't want it, but my mind needs it. I want to learn how to teach my mind to communicate better with my stomach. I would love to understand how I can manage navigating all my family events as they all love to have lots of food and I am triggered. Totally get that. I get all of these actually. Patience and compassion with myself. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I was just thinking this understanding the stomach. I know for myself, once upon a time, I didn't even understand when I was hungry, let alone thirsty. Anyway, I'm going to share a little bit about myself first. If you're anything like me, many moons ago, you may be experiencing a lot of fear around food right now. The holiday period used to be so overwhelming. I didn't want to eat and felt the pressure to eat. And I also binged and compulsively ate and felt so guilty I threw it all up. I just did not want to eat. Food was scary. Surviving the holidays, whether you have disordered eating or not, is stressful. Diwali has just passed. Thanksgiving is about to come, and Christmas and New Year will follow shortly. And all these events include food, a lot of food. And even after all these years, I still panic a bit. So, how are we going to deal with the stress of food? It tends to be everywhere this time of the year. It's in the office, in the home, in the car, and jam packed in our shopping stores. Food laying about for many of us is a big trigger. If you see it laying around at work, put it away, stuff it in cupboards. Many of your colleagues will be secretly pleased. You can do the same in your home. I never have food laying around in the kitchen. Let people help themselves. During this holiday period, you can make your home a safe place and not have all your binge foods around. If you have other people in your household who like the cookies, the sweets, have them in a different cupboard. I do. My partner likes cookies. They're in a different cupboard so I don't have to see them. Often we hear that old adage, well, you can't stop eating like you can just stop alcohol. Well, maybe we can't stop eating, but we can begin to consider stopping eating our alcohols. Yes, I call some of the binge foods that we eat alcohols. What are the foods that you tend to binge on? Is it fried food? Is it white flour? Because these are foods you can begin to become abstinent from. For example, I choose not to eat refined sugars because if I ate refined sugars, I wouldn't be able to stop. So this gives me freedom when I am abstinent from these binge foods. You can also think of foods in traffic lights. What are your red foods, the dangerous foods? Those are the ones that we need to practice being abstinent from. Or you could have the amber foods, which are like, yeah, you don't binge on them all the time, but they can be a bit dodgy. Yeah. And then you've got the green foods, the foods that are okay, that you can have one bite and you can just leave it. Yeah. That's so freeing. So perhaps you can think about red food, amber foods, and green foods. And the green foods are the ones that you need around you at this time of the year. This is a time of year you may have to accept that you're going to eat a bit more. Whether you are anorectic or bulimic or compulsive overeater or perhaps don't fall into any of those categories, allow yourself to eat the things you really like. Some of you may even restrict your intake more during this time. All I ask is just be kind and know whatever you do with food during this season, it has a function, it has a role. It may be soothing you. It may be protecting you from all the stress and chaos. It may be protecting you from something. So just be kind to some of these behaviors that may get activated during this time of year. If you really feel panicked about a gathering where there is food, make your excuses. I sometimes tell people I have a cold and nobody wants to be near anybody who's got a cold, so people aren't going to force you to go out. If you choose to go out and people pressurize you to eat something you don't want, tell people you have an allergy to the food. That's what I do. I say I have an allergy. When the desserts come out, And people saying, well, why aren't you eating the desserts? I tell people, I have an allergy. I have an allergy to chocolate. I have an allergy. And people step back. Let's just take a moment to pause, because I've said a lot. And just become aware of what's happening inside you right now. Yeah, become aware if the heart is beating, whether there's sensation in the stomach. And just know this is just activation. You're just activated. That's all what's happening. And just know if there is story arising, we're just caught in a story and we can step out of the story. Okay, well, if you've sat with me before, you know I love questions. So this is question time. So I'm just wondering if any questions have come up at all for any of you. And please, please offer your questions. Okay, so the first question we have is, I struggle eating meals in large groups as I'm very self-conscious of what people are thinking and whether they are judging what I am eating. So what I want to say to you about this is that, yes, sometimes we can become very self-conscious when we're eating in large groups. And so what is happening is that we've become activated, and just notice the sensations that are happening in the body. Yeah, there may be a lot of tension going on in the body. And you may want to ask yourself, what's this experience reminding you of? How old is this story of being activated, eating in large groups? I know for some people this can be really, really triggering, because as a child, adults said some unkind things, in fact, some really horrible things to children. Yeah. Because this fear of eating in big groups didn't come out of thin air. There is a reason, something happened. And if we can connect to the reason why we are experiencing this discomfort, if we can connect that this is something that happened a long time ago. Yeah. Long, long, long time ago. If we can connect to that and realize this is an ancient story, that we can begin to let go of it, because we are no longer that young child who cannot speak up, no longer that young child who may get clipped around the head because they said something about food. Let's move on to another question. How do you suggest I have a conversation with my husband regarding his poor food choices and the sneaking of food? I know he does. This is a really difficult one. One of the things that we can do is to be a bit more compassionate, and rather than judge that your husband is making poor choices around food, just know that your husband is activated. This is a trauma response if somebody is sneaking food, and they don't want anybody to see them eating. This is a trauma response. So I would say is get curious, but before you get curious with your husband, get curious about your relationship to food first. This is really important. Often we can look at other people and think they make poor choices, and we might make poor choices too. So how can we model something differently? And then when your husband isn't eating, and definitely not when you've just observed that your husband's gone off and sneaked this food, perhaps have a conversation and get curious and just ask him, what's going on for you? What's happening for you with food, or what is a story for you with food? And let's see if he's willing to explore that. If he's not, then you would just have to leave it and just be kind. Okay, let's explore another question. I'm not a fan of the holidays as it brings up a lot of childhood memories of my food issues I grew up with. Any way to shift my story, I haven't been able to yet. There's a practice that I've developed called rust. And I even use this practice myself. I think it's an excellent practice. And I'm really proud that I use this practice myself, so often as meditation teachers or trauma teachers, we give this advice. That's the easy part, to give the advice. But are we walking our talk? And so for me, more and more, my commitment is to do everything that I invite other people to do. So this practice of rust is, if we are experiencing activation and the holidays are coming up and what am I going to do, and you can see just as I begin to talk about it, I'm beginning to get tense. Recognize I'm activated. And as soon as I recognize I'm activated, I begin to relax. But for some people, they just maybe just so caught up with the distress and the upset and the trauma that happened as a child. And you can see that my head is bending over in this position of shame. U stands for understand that you're just caught in a story. And it's an old story often, a story that you've been playing over and over in your head. And you can step out of the story. Yeah. You can step out, literally step out of the story. Just know it's just a story, that's all. And S, sensations. None of us like to be with the sensations, that there's always sensations going on in our body if we're activated and we're caught in a story. And I'm not going to say sit with the sensation. We often hear just sit with the sensations and grit your teeth. Absolutely no way. We know sometimes that's what adults told us. Don't move. I'll give you something. If you flinch, don't move. And other things that happened to us and we couldn't move or say anything. And this is an invitation. It's to stretch with sensations, sway with sensations, move with sensations. You might even want to sing with sensations and just move the somatic body around so that you can have a bit of this somatic experiencing. And T stands for trust this too shall pass. Everything is impermanent. You might be overwhelmed in this moment, but tomorrow you'll be in a completely different place, and we forget that. Trust this too shall pass. And if we're still caught in the story, we could tell the story to relax. Literally, tell the story to relax. Or we could tell the story to shut the beep, beep up. Yes, even in Buddhist practice, we can be really wrathful, really, really wrathful, and just tell it to shut up. Sometimes we have to be that determined. Yeah. Or we just ask it to relax so that we can have a moment of freedom. And it doesn't have to be linear. Okay. You could just call on you. Oh, I understand. I'm just caught in a story. That's all what's happening. I could relax. Or you might call on, I'm just activated. What do I need to do right now? Or you might just call on sensations. Okay, I need to move the body. Or T, just trust this too shall pass. So that's what we can do when memories are coming up from our past. Okay, Somebody wants to learn the connection of stress and the perceived need or craving for taste. Well, if we are craving for taste, then stress has arisen. Yeah. And it's a really difficult one because actually some people um, can't even taste and may be craving for taste. But I know that sometimes I can be craving for the taste for a particular food. And when I crave for the taste for this particular food, I salivate. It's exciting. Okay. So this is the connection that actually when we're stressed and we don't want to be stressed, we want something that's going to relieve the stress. And if we think of our favorite food, we salivate and there's a bit of excitement and it can ease a bit of the stress. Yeah. And this craving is all in the head, but it's this strong. Those of you who perhaps have love addiction know that when you think of the person who you want to contact you, who you want to feel the vibration of your phone or the ringtone of the phone on your thigh, you know when you think of that person, the brain releases endorphins and there's a feel good sensation in the body. And this is the same when we are craving for taste, a feel good sensation in the body. Okay, coming to another question. I'm guilty of continuing to eat foods that trigger me. And then I wonder why I can't stop binging and purging. Thank you for pointing out that being abstinent from these foods is a way forward. Yes, there's one thing that I do want to say, and I know that I'm going to be in my next session or a session before Christmas digging deeper into alcohol. But those of you who eat compulsively or you binge or eat a bit more, be aware of alcohol. It's one of the reasons why I don't drink alcohol, because whenever I drank alcohol, I would binge because alcohol is sugar. Yeah. And this is really hard for some people to really hear, to think that actually, if you want more of a peaceful relationship with food, you might have to let go of the alcohol. There are what we call the gateway drugs. Yeah. And a gateway drug for you may be a bag of chips. You eat a bag of chips, or if the Brits are listening, you eat a bag of crisps, and the next thing you're craving for chocolate and sugar. So there are these gateway foods, and this is the same with alcohol. Yeah. And what I would say for the person who does compulsively eat, really just become aware of the foods you tend to binge on, because these are the foods that we have to begin to let go of. And then it's the same with if you restrict it, somebody who restricts, who's anorectic, become aware of the behaviors that you do, that you need to begin to let go of, because we can binge on particular behaviors. I'm fully aware of that. I was across the board anorectic, bulimic, anorectic. Yeah. And now I would say, well, I have a much healthier relationship with food. I enjoy food, and still some days it is difficult. Still some days I freak out about the size of my body. And you know what? So what? It goes. If I have one of those days, it's like I just check in. Ah, you're feeling vulnerable. Or what am I trying to control? I can't control what's happening out there, so I want to control the body. I want to control food. Yeah. What should I do if I make a mistake and binge eat? How do I not beat myself up? I don't have compassionate words. Well, what I want to say to you is that it's not a mistake if you pick up food. What happened is you needed to soothe yourself. There was a reason why you picked up the food. And just know, when we pick up the food, in the next moment we can put it back down again. When we pick up the food, it doesn't mean to say that we have to binge for the rest of the evening. And if you do, then tomorrow is a new day. And we just have to tell ourselves, when we picked up the food, we needed to soothe ourselves. We needed to take care of ourselves. Is there a mantra or meditation practice I can use preparing to go into the fray of the two F's? I like that. Family and food. Well, what timing with that question, because yes, I'm going to lead us through a reflective practice which is called AGE. I like my acronyms. AGE. And this is something that we can do when we're traveling, when we're walking, we can stop. This is something we can do before we walk into the house with the family. Age. It's called a breathing space. So taking a breathing space. A. Awareness. Become aware of the body. And we become aware of the body by simply noticing what the body is touching. So I notice that my hands are touching my thighs. I notice that clothing is touching my body. And I become aware of feelings. I become aware of, there's a bit of tension in my left shoulder. I become aware that actually there's a bit of restriction going on in the body. And I become aware of some of my thoughts. I become aware of perhaps a thought that's saying, this is going to be difficult. And I become aware of another thought, be kind to myself. And so we move to G, gather the breath, because the breath can interrupt this thinking that can get us caught in this spiral. So we gather the breath by becoming aware of the breath rising and falling in the abdomen area, or the breath rising and falling in the chest area, or the breath on the upper lip and inside the nostrils. So you choose. Just see if you can become aware of the breath. And even if your mind spins off, just have the commitment that you're just going to keep on bringing it back, even if you become aware of it spinning off. And just become aware of the abdomen rising and falling, or in the chest area, or on the upper lip. When we breathe in, sometimes it's cool, and when we breathe out, sometimes it's warmer. And we continue to work with interrupting these thoughts, this activation, by taking a deep breath in. So there's an invitation to take a deep breath in with me and expand the breathing throughout the whole body. Go on, let's see if you can take another breath in as deep as you can. And expanding the breathing throughout the whole body. Yeah. I was going to ring the bell then, and I'm not sure what I did with my ringer. So we will bring that to a pause. And I just want to thank you all so much for joining me for today's conversation. And remember, you can always meditate with Round Glass live every single day. Check us out at round.glass and on our app. So I look forward to being with you again, being with you with Live with Vimalasara. May all blessings be yours.